Great. All right. Well, thank you for coming. Welcome to the first studio sessions. All right, thanks everyone for coming. So if you don't know, Studio Sessions is a new conversation series presented by the Brand Studios at CU Boulder. And it's about the ideas shaping creative work today. So once again, thank you all for being here at the inaugural event. Thank you to all of our sponsors. I'm going to start off with some commercials so we know who's making this happen. So first up, I'd love Parisa and Jeff to come up, and I mentioned the Brand Studios. What is that?
Okay, you can.
Is it a school? Is it a company?
It's a master's program for creativity. We have two tracks. One is design, one is creative advertising. Creative advertising is getting off the ground brand new this year, starts in August. And the space you're sitting in, as well as the studio next door, is the Brand Studios.
Yes, and we have the user experience design and brand design track for 13 years. We were always here. We'd like to have the community, local business owner to engage with us, and we both came from industry, working as a designer, a copywriter, a creative, so we would like to be a bridge between academic, university, the master program, and also you amazing guys. And we have some current student, past student, prospective student today, so feel free to talk to them, and thank you, Michael, for doing that for us.
Thanks to you two for making all this possible. Thank you, Parisa. Okay, we have some other wonderful sponsors. Nicole over here is responsible for these beautiful flowers. And so for myself as a busy husband, I know how tough it is to find a way to get flowers to my beautiful wife. Nicole, maybe tell us a little bit about what Deadhead Floral is.
Hi guys, I'm Nicole, and I'm the owner of Deadhead Floral Co. I'm just a cute, creative little studio out of Lyons. It's just my side passion project. I do little seasonal monthly flower subscriptions, intimate gatherings, and if we're vibing, if you have a wedding or something big on a bigger scale, then always happy to talk about that. But just a fun side thing after kind of hustling in the industry for a while. It's fun to get back to like creative purpose.
Julia, where's Julia? Julia is responsible for taking some pictures, so thank you, Julia. Julia is one of the most well-known and well-connected photographers in Boulder. She works with commercial brands as well as with families, so best of both worlds. Kevin Steele's here recording our event. Kevin's a commercial director with storytellers and Lucid People Avenue. Alpine Mono, if you want a coffee, it's over there and it's free. And Alpine Mono, there's 2 locations here in Boulder. Jackie is modeling how to get coffee from the ground. Thank you, Jackie. And wonderful drinks from Fabric. Haley, I would love for you to come up here and just tell us a little bit about Fabric. Are these drinks alcoholic? Do they have THC?
Oh, good questions. Hi everyone, my name's Haley, one of the co-founders of Fabric, along with Anthony back here. Fun facts about us, we're actually brand designers turned beverage founders. So if you want to talk shop about what it's like to go through that journey, let me know. We have low-dose THC-infused hot waters at Hazel's today. Here at this location, we have non-dosed lemongrass hot waters, 0 calories, 0 sugar. So come grab one for later or give it a sample. Thanks.
Delicious. And if you like the fonts you see, I want to give a big shout out to Ivan from Arcade Type. Ivan doing stuff. He recently was a font designer, and he lovingly donated some of his work so that we could have delicious and beautiful typography today. So thank you, Ivan, so much. All right, so today we're having a panel discussion. We're going to start out with one person here and bring out a few others. We're going to talk about AI, creative growth, and what do creative professionals need to learn next to stay relevant in this world. Just to get us started, I wanted to show of hands, who's using AI regularly, like every day? Okay, great, who's never used AI? Ever? Never have. Okay, no one. And who's kind of tired of hearing about AI? Maybe a little like overloaded. Right? Like, all this stuff. This should be good for me then. It'll be cathartic or boring. All right. So first up, we're gonna have three guests that I mentioned. But first up, we have Christian Robbins. Christian, thank you for being here. And Christian, can I call you Chris?
You can call me. Whoop. Hey, Ron. There we go. Ooh, that sounds really good. You can call me Christian. Either one's good. Chris, let's keep it quick.
All right, Chris. So, Chris, first, tell us where you're from in case someone else in this room is struggling to.
I'm from Michigan, if you can't tell from the hat. So,
I love from Michigan. But you're the co-founder and chief creative officer at $11 Bill.
Yes, sir.
So tell us, what is $11 Bill? Can you describe what you do?
So we are a post-production studio based in Boulder, Chicago, and Durham, North Carolina. Lisa Efris, who's over back here somewhere, where's she at? There she is. Her and I got this Boulder office up and running, what, about 8-9 years ago now, Lise?
Almost 10.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And we've had the opportunity to meet a lot of amazing people. Some of them are here in the crowd. Got to do really great work. But we do everything, basically after the production. So editorial, motion graphics design, audio, color correction, 3D. But we also do handle a lot of production side of things as well. And, we've won a bunch of shiny awards and we all have a good time. We're a small business and everybody is a rock star in it. So we have a good time.
Well, let's take a look at something we made recently now.
Okay.
There are people who love noodles and company steak stroganoff so much that when it was taken off the menu, they got dramatic about it.
This is your message from the universe, telling you to bring the steak stroganoff back. Bring back steak stroganoff now!
Our fans brought the drama, so we brought the stroganoff. Steak stroganoff is back, but only for a limited time.
Woo! So, Chris, tell me, what did we just say? What was that?
That was a spot for steak stroganoff for Noodles and Company. That was made entirely in generative AI, including the food, which is really weird. And I think I probably saw Andy back there from Fortnite. And they, they're expecting. And they took a risk with us on this. The client really wanted to have generative AI not just be a technique, but an actual character and part of the creativity of the spot itself. So for instance, they put the beef stroganoff, it's like the McRib, right? They put the beef stroganoff on the menu. People are like, yeah, and then they take it off and everybody goes nuts on social. So they wanted to do dramatic reenactments of some of the craziest prompts or comments that they got on all their social media feeds. So by doing that, we kind of lean into the generative AI look, which was kind of fun. And then the opportunity came up they wanted to have all food AI as well. And at first I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna look. Like, you sell the noodles, right?
Why did they want AI?
They just, their culture there at the company, at Noodles is really heavily.
Is that a cheese joke?
Yeah, maybe. Just totally, they're really leaning into it. Generative AI, they're more open to it than most clients are. And, and just to back up a second, I don't push AI on people, right? Like, we are a post-production company with, talented people, multidisciplined. But we've had to learn, how to integrate these tools into our workflow. So for somebody to come at us and say, yeah, we even want the food, like, that's what you sell. Like, that's the personal identity of the core brand. And I'm like, all right, well, and I was very frank. I was like, I'm not sure this is going to look good, but we can test it and see, see if it does. So we did. I'm like, give me everything you got. I got 2 JPEGs of the beef stroganoff. I'm like, this is not going to be easy to build a custom stroganoff model to create things from, but it ended up looking good. They were like, yeah, it only has like 8 pieces of steak on it, not 12. So they were like thinking to dial in, and like the mushrooms don't get cooked that way. So it wasn't like super easy to make this.
Well, I've read online that making things with AI is easier. Is it on surface?
It's,
Can you tell, is it easier or harder than a traditional ad?
you know what, it's different. It's totally different because now all of the creativity gets front loaded onto places like us that understand how to use the tools. So for instance, you know, there was no footage of the beef stroganoff to be had, right? Like we had to come up with it and we had to art direct it with, you know, Fortnite, their incredible team, and come up and curate. And I'm like, okay, well, they wanted to have a live session. And I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work either. So, you know, we had a live generative AI session and everybody was trying to dial in specific parts of it. And, you know, I play around with this stuff a lot, like for the past like 5, 6 years. So I know what the capacity is and I know what you can and can't do as of today, right? But there has to be a practical approach to using this stuff within a post-production pipeline. So we're trying to do it, you know, shove a, you know, square peg in a round hole a little bit, but everybody kind of felt like this is new territory. This is exciting. So it was a really interesting way to create content. And then we went through the traditional post process, right? Like we edited it, we made sounds, we got our best takes, you know, I mean, there's probably like, what, like 10 shots, 12 shots in that spot and 900 pieces of garbage that'll never see the light of day, right? So it does like have this element of like curation to it because if you know what you're doing as a creative with taste, you can make your footage that you're about to edit with. And as an editor, that's a pretty sweet spot to be in. So it's really interesting.
Well, I would love to get some audience questions in a minute, but first, because we're going to post this online, I would love for you to just tell us, for the nerds, your tech stack. Can you throw out some product names? And is this regular ChatGPT, like the free version, or what are you doing this now?
I mean, in order to do this right, like there's only a handful of things you can actually use. So there's a lot of really great tools out there that do really amazing things that will get everybody in a lawsuit. And there has to be proper ways to use this. So I'm a really pragmatic kind of guy. You know, I play with all this stuff and then see what works because in my industry, it's equal parts creativity and, you know, technology, right? Like you have to understand how the tech works, how new tools work. You have to understand how to curate. So, you know, the tools we use aren't really any, they're not inaccessible to anybody, right? Like, I mean, you pay for Adobe, you know, all that stuff you create with Adobe Firefly is all rights managed, cleared for usage because you're paying for the Adobe stock library and that's where everything is being generated from. And then you can use that to do whatever you want with. You want to make it still, make it move, cool, drop it into something like Runway. But you have to have enterprise bumpers on this stuff in order to say to your client, yes, none of this stuff trains any other models. Yes, it's not talking to anything else. Yes, we're making you a custom workflow that is based around this specific project's need.
So it's like a sealed black box. It's not the same stuff I have access to.
I mean, it is, but in order to like actually properly put it into a workflow, you have to talk to lawyers, right? And you have to make sure you're not getting your company in a situation where they get in trouble. So you have to know how to do these things right before you can say to your client, oh yeah, this is the right way to do this. So there's trial and error, right?
And you have to ask a real lawyer. Like,
I mean, my sister, and she lives in New York City. She's a property rights IP attorney that's dipping into AI. So I call her on the phone. I'm like, am I doing this right? And she's like, you're going to have to pay me eventually here. So
yeah, step one, have a sister who is an AI attorney. Who from the audience has a question that I didn't ask? I'm not a terrible interviewer. Who has a question that I did not bring up? Who wants to know something from Chris here? You, yes, sir.
I was just curious. Oh, I'm Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Nice to meet you. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I was curious, how does the live session with your client work with generative AI?
It's super weird.
It's super weird. Just waiting.
Well, I mean, you got to preface everything with, you know, this is all new territory for everybody. And saying things like, this might take a few minutes, you know, I can jam out as many generations as I need to, and we can all kind of sit and wait for things to happen. That's where it starts getting weird. But that's also part of the entertainment value of having a human in the room. Because, you know, sometimes you're doing an edit, you know, it could be like a few days, It could be in person, it could not. It could be a month, it could be a year. So you have to have, a natural cadence to, it's like cutting hair, right? You're talking to your client while you're doing things, you're waiting for, all these generations to hurry up, and then we look at them and they all suck. So we're like, okay, why? What happened? And then now it becomes like not a client-vendor relationship. It's more of like, here's a group of creative people trying to problem solve, which is a really cool way to approach post-production now. So it makes the whole experience completely different. But yeah, it's weird at first, but you got to go through it once and say, these are the things that are going to be weird, that are not normal. And, as long as we're all cool being weird, which generally creative people are, it'll be fun.
Be cool in the room.
Yeah.
Humorous. Yes. Please introduce yourself. Ask us a question.
Hello, I'm Haley.
Hi, Haley.
When there are infinite iterations and infinite generations that you can be making, how are you pricing that or living that? Like, how are you going into these productions and not just saying, all right, client, like you just get to keep doing this for years until you get the perfect thing? Like, how are you putting limits on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because, and Lisa over there can probably help out with that a little bit too. But, I bring the points to the table and how we price them are totally different. Like we have new line items, right? Generative AI and, idea exploration and things like that help kind of subdivide those tasks. But again, we charge by the day at $11. And sometimes we charge project rate because we know, hey, if we're going to learn something from this project, we don't have to like overcharge if that weird factor is going to be in it. And we're all trying to learn how this new process works, right? And, it's difficult to say no to a client. Like we're really not good at that at $11 bill. So, but the more that we can learn and try to make this an environment where people feel comfortable and we're trusted as the people who know how to do this, the less that begins to matter. There is time outside, where we'll, feel more confident if I run some stuff at home, right? And try it on my setup and come in with options. And then we can dial things down from that. So those are the things I'm starting to learn as far as like the process and the workflow goes that help, make it a tangible line item. So.
Do you charge them like a portion of the AI fees?
No.
The target?
No. Generally, it's not.
Who asked that question? That was a good question. Okay, let's, so a big part of studio sessions is having multiple voices, talking about a relevant topic. So up next, I would love to bring out Cara Fellows and Jason Van Pierce to round out our panel here.
I did.
So let's do some introductions. I asked Chris where he was from. So Cara, you go first. Where are you from? And just tell us what you do. Explain it like I'm 5.
Okay, 5 seconds.
Well, no, it's not like I'm 5 years old.
Oh, okay. Well, I grew up in California and went to college in the Midwest. Started my career in Minneapolis, where I lived for a decade in the 90s. And then I moved here 14 years ago. And I'm an illustrator. I've been an illustrator for 35 years. So I started in 1991. Yeah.
1991?
1991. Who was not born yet? 1991. Raise your hand.
Nice to have you, Cara. Jason, tell us about yourself. Where are you from? What are you doing now?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Pierce. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Yeah, man. Go Blue. Playing right now, actually, on Ohio State, for Ohio State. I'm an art director by background. I grew up in the ad industry by way of the music industry. I'm very much a visual sort of storyteller, visual thinker. I moved here about 11 years ago to work at Christmas Porter, where I met many of you. And I now am co-founder and CEO of a creative talent management agency called Ink Management. So I am in the creative people business. So I'm excited about this.
It's great to have you. Let me ask you a question. Like, all right, so in a talent search, has AI changed how that happens? Is there an expectation for you as an agency to use AI or for the talent you're promoting to use it or have an opinion on it?
I think as far as what we're seeing in the industry is very slow to catching on about what AI means from a talent perspective, like as a skill set. We have not seen many clients come to us with having AI as a prerequisite, but the times where we have, it's a testament to that agency or company's culture where they're already leading the act on it. But we've seen comments come through, like, you know, if we're doing a search for a creative director, where they're asking about their AI sensibilities. We're working on something right now with a telecom company, and they're interested in, let's just say, talent in influencer kind of space. And that question has come up from a content creation standpoint. So yeah, we've seen it. We're not seeing it a lot, but from my experience in the creative industry, specifically advertising, the agencies are usually slower to catch on to these kind of things.
Well, it seems like a lot of the discussion around AI is being pushed by the AI companies themselves, promoting what they can do. And for me, I didn't know right away what these AI models were trained on. And Cara, when we were talking before this, something you brought up is the fact that it's trained on the work of artists like you. If I can type in an illustration style, like grab from you or some other artist, maybe even by name. I'm just curious, how did it feel when you realized that? And what do you think that means for the value of your craft? Haley asked Chris about pricing. How does it change with pricing?
Well, I don't know that it has changed anything for me directly, but I think, you know, that discovery that the AI companies have been mining our material and writers and photographers' material for years without our permission is kind of the original sin of AI. And I think a lot of artists are hard to get over that, you know, and get past it. But it's similar to a couple of other events that have happened over the decades in my career, one of them being stock photography and stock illustration. When the stock, I mean, now it's just a thing that exists in the world, but that happened around, I don't know, the early 90s. And people were all up in arms about it because suddenly there was saturation of the market. It meant that if an agency couldn't afford to hire an artist, they could use stock for a lot less money. And so this is similar to that. But eventually it just became absorbed. It became part of the landscape of the business. Excuse me. And people kind of forgot about it. And the same had happened prior to that with like cameras, DSLR cameras, you know. But it being a tool that made it more accessible for a lot more people to do photography, you know, also changed the nature of the business. The difference is people were still making that work. And a lot of artists, it was very frowned upon to do this, but a lot of artists just went ahead and put their work on stock sites. And some artists even started creating work just for stock sites. And eventually it was kind of like, well, you can fight this fight or you can join them, or you can just wait for it to pass and, you know, pivot to something else, or, you know, just work a little harder at your business or get a better agent or something. And I think that every time there's been sort of a sea change like this in my business, certain people wash out because they either age out of the business, they were going to retire anyway, or they decide to do something else because it's just too hard. Now, personally for me, in this moment, fortunately, I've been doing this for long enough that most of the clients I still work with, I've been working with for 25 or 30 years. So they're always going to call me I hope. But I'm also at a moment in my career, personally, where I'm kind of at a point where I'd like to pivot to something else anyway. So I'm not really worried about the technology because right now, frankly, it's not that good. And it kind of all looks the same, kind of like the early DSLR work looked all the same. And stock photography looks the same. Everyone can tell something, what a stock photo looks like, for the most part, You
The
give me
beef stroganoff look delicious as hell though. Which part? Because I think there's a lot of interesting things that you're bringing up from the perspective of an artist that makes things with their hands, and there's a sense of purity with that. But which part are you asking about?
Okay, so that part, but also just how you mentioned having relationships with your clients. I feel like who here is like a recent graduate or like still in school or anything? One of you. No, that's just Jay, but he's here for no reason. So I just feel like if you're trying to get a job and you're submitting your resume, like outside of the creative world, AI is involved in that. And so I'm just curious in terms of either being a party experience and having a built-in network, does AI change anything with that? Does AI change anything when you're, again, like going in with talent?
Yeah.
Does it make it harder? Does it make it easier?
I think we're probably giving AI more credit than it deserves, especially in its infancy. The idea of being a creative person has been around as long as humanity. So I sort of think about it as from a human perspective. Like I'm in the people business, and we are infinitely unique. And unless you're bringing AI, is just a tool. It's not, the operative word there is artificial, which we are not. And I don't think anyone out here is interested in making anything artificial. So from a creative standpoint, you always want to bring your own point of view to it. And the thing that you're saying that really resonates with me is that even though AI is in its infancy, we can all spot AI along the way, for the most part, because it does look the same. So as a creative person, as an artist, I think you always have to bring to the table, not the tool, but what is your perspective of how you're bringing the most creative thing possible to life. And if that means using AI to help you do that, I think that's great. We're in a moment in time right now where that's topical. So yeah, is there a competitive edge to bringing AI to the table as like a part of one of the tools on your tool belt? For sure. If it looks like everything else that everyone else is doing, you fall right into that category. And ultimately, the way I think about, there's so many, we can talk about this all day, just the democratization of creativity from digital cameras and social media. Everyone that has a phone, your own clients probably think that they're more creative. Like, that is where we are. But my feeling is just because you can pick up a hammer, that doesn't make you a carpenter. So, or if I'm going to be a nerd about it, just because you pick up the hammer doesn't mean you're Thor. There you go. But I think it has to, you have to bring that sense of craft and that sense of intentionality and something that is unique about whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're using AI or not.
Should there be gatekeeping on AI? Like, are there too many like posers out there? People who say they're creative all of a sudden, but they're not, and their work shouldn't even exist. Chris, what do you think?
I think with having these tools, it definitely opens up the door for a lot of people to do things that they weren't accustomed to doing, right? So I think you look at that from their perspective. Suddenly producers can create visual effect work or explain an idea to a visual effects team, Like I really wanted to do something like this. I want the, can of Coke to open up in the sky and pour all over the street. Here's a little video I concept for it, right? And I've got directors making boards in Midjourney, over the last, I don't know, 16 months, I haven't seen a single hand-drawn storyboard. Bless you. So it's putting the ability for people to show their creativity in a different way that they've never really ever been able to use. Now, does that make it good? Not necessarily, but creative people will, take any tool they have and make something creative with it if they can figure out how. And that's just kind of the blessing and the curse of being creative. And if you can give these tools guardrails, you can begin to do really interesting things with them. But to that point, these are ways to execute, right? Like in the end, people, creativity doesn't go away, right? Creativity, ideas, that's what matters. Like this is kind of like, I would say this is the 5th time I probably had to change myself and repivot my identity creatively, like the tools that I use, like, video, the digital, the HD, Final Cut, like, oh, college kids are gonna take our job. They did, So does that mean production's going away? No, because if you want, quick UGC style content that's down and dirty, it's on somebody's screen for 5 seconds, use some AI. If you need nuance and people and emotion, you need a team that can actually create that. So there's 2 different schools of thought for me personally on like how people use these tools. One's a bit more craftsmanship based, and one's more volume. And if you can kind of split the difference right now, this is the worst it's going to be today, right? Like these tools right now are the worst they're ever going to be. So every day they get better and better and better and better. And as a guy who owns a company, I have to be in front of that all the time. So it's really difficult to say, let's not use AI or let's have stance on it when, clients come to us and budgets go down, deliverables go up. It's been happening for years. So if there's something that can help me with a VFX cleanup portion that takes 10 seconds to do instead of 3 or 4 days or a week, and I can just do that in the middle of the edit session and we all just move on with our lives, you look like a warlock. Like you're able to do things in the suite that an editor per se isn't able to do. So, now those are in our hands. Those tools are in our hands too. And, that's totally changes the entire scope of creativity on our end. There you go.
Well, it sort of took out some of the repetitive parts of your job, not the part that you're proud of, the creativity, the talking with clients, the understanding a concept. It's making other parts easier. Whereas Cara, not to put you on the spot, but I think you probably feel totally different because you're an illustrator. Would you ever just use AI to simplify your workflow? Is that what for you and your clients? Because everyone's different.
No, I actually thought about it for a minute, like a month ago or so, when, it's just more and more, it's in everything now, right? It's in your email, it's in the algorithm, it's everywhere. And, when we talk about AI, there's so many different kinds of AI. There's the kind of AI that most of us aren't even aware of, it's kind of just behind the scenes. And then there's like generative AI, where you're putting prompts in and it's spitting out a result as a service, right? So, what was the question?
Are you using AI to make your workflow easier?
Oh, would I? Yeah. So I thought about it for a minute and I was like, well, maybe I'll try some of these tools. And I started researching because I thought, I could use it to iterate and maybe, somehow elevate my work or give me some ideas how to progress something, progress my work. And a couple things about that. I think the process is so important as an artist. The process of drawing, putting pencil to paper and drawing and doing that every day for 35 years and watching your improvement. And it's all coming from you, your practice, your brain, and looking at things and observing the world and being hyper observant, and looking for things to draw, And, back in the beginning, if you needed a picture of a matador for an ad that you had to draw. You had to go down to the library in the city and spend half a day looking through what were called picture files.
Walk uphill both ways.
We got,
Walk uphill both ways.
of course we did. But it was fun. It was fun. It was a field trip. You know, you go and you look through the Minneapolis Public Library's photo archives, and it's incredible stuff that they've torn from magazines going back to the 1920s. And you can, you know, just, it's all alphabetized, you know, automobiles. And it's beautiful advertising pieces that you can look through and you can check out and you can take back to your studio and draw the matador that you found a picture of. You know,
God damn, what a time.
I mean, it was, you know, the internet really wasn't a thing yet. It had been invented, but it wasn't really happening yet. So you couldn't really use it that way yet. But there's so much value in that kind of legwork. And to me, what's interesting is like you talk about AI doing those tasks that a junior would do, you know, that someone just getting out of school, starting out would do. If AI is replacing those people and those tasks, then how do those people become senior? Who do they learn from? You know, who are their mentors? Because it was my mentor who was a master illustrator in Minneapolis, engraver, you know, amazing guy, who hired me for a year and a half as his assistant. And that's how I learned the business, because I did not go to school for art. I was in a creative writing program in undergrad. So I got out of college and just changed gears, had to kind of start over and just, you know, fake it while I made it. But I learned everything about the business from him. And so back to your original question though, during that little minute where I was starting to research, like, could I do this? Do I want to do this? Was the same week that my Gmail started giving me automatic responses to send to people. And I replied, I was like, oh, okay. Yes, thank you. Send it off, whatever, you know. And later in the week, I realized I didn't remember if I had sent that email or not, because I didn't write it. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing this AI thing, because it's all about the process. I'm not using my own brain to do it.
Yeah.
For me. But I'm also not afraid of it. I think it will get better with time. It'll become like stock photography became. It won't be a real issue, I think, for those of us who still draw and paint.
But you feel like the friction and the difficulty in creating is part of your process.
Yeah.
And are you saying AI would make it you're afraid AI would make it too easy and you wouldn't even know what's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be, I mean, there's joy in creation. There's joy in making that. There's, you know, I get up, I open my eyes and I see my, you know, art supplies across the room, and that's what I want to do, you know?
Well, and you mentioned kind of changing a part of your career, and Christopher brought this up about AI and the tools eliminating maybe part of your role, like part of your title at work, but not the job itself. So I'm curious for you and Jason, hiring people, what skills should people bring to the table today? So we already heard some interest in AI as table stakes. You have to know what Claude is. And then what about after that? What skills are more important now if AI's, like to Car's point, eliminating some of those skills required for a junior role? What do you need to be today besides nice?
I mean, nice goes a long way. I think that is such a layered question. Sorry. First and foremost, I think patience and a sense of hustle. And if anything, what AI is doing, it should be kind of bringing out that inner hustler in you, because we're all now in this state of having to compete and be more competitive and validate why, as a creative person, you versus another creative. I think that sense of competition is becoming more and more visceral, and I think that we're going to see, in terms of the job market in the creative field, there's going to be greater separation between people that are landing the jobs and the people that are not, and I think there will be fewer people that will be landing the jobs, and that will be based on how you're integrating intelligently. I think right now where we are is kind of bullshit, and there's just a race to being the king of AI, but like when the dust settles, I think there will be a big metric in how you're using AI. I think intelligence will play a big role in that. I'm very interested in what I was also talking to a medical friend of mine recently, and she was saying, shout out to Justin Farmer over the death. But we were just talking about like what is AI going to mean in that editorial process, and just to kind of summarize, it's like if I can get all the bullshit off my plate, I can focus on the thing that I really love doing, which is the creative process. I think that conversation was super interesting. Fast forward to a month later, Ben Affleck is selling this technology to Netflix for $600 billion. Or whatever, bottom fucking line. And I think there's already this push and this realization of like, what's the stuff that I don't want to deal with that's keeping me from being really great at what I do. And I think the more creators adopt AI in that way, those are the ones that are going to be the most competitive in terms of who's getting hired. Because the end result to that also is they're the ones that's probably going to have cooler work. It's not going to look like the 98 cat videos that we see. I watch them, but yeah, that's not what I strive to create.
The cat videos are pretty funny these days. They dance very well now. I totally agree with the saving the time, because that time isn't time that is wasted. It's time that you get to spend more, doing more revisions, experimenting more, like trying other ideas out that you normally wouldn't have time for. Like it's hard to be like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had more time? But you can now, if you're doing it kind of in the right way. And there's different schools, right, of the types of tools. And are they image generation? Are they audio generation? Are they synthetic media, right? Versus, workflow things that change. But to your very valid point about what happens to junior level people, like entry level people, what will they need to have in order to look attractive to, like for my place, for instance. I look for people who are multidisciplined. And that's not just using AI. That's also, can they edit? Maybe they do music. Maybe they like to take a lot of hand-drawn elements and scan them in and then animate that. Like I'm looking for people who have a unique POV that makes the rest of the company better, right? That we can all kind of like learn from each other. And it doesn't matter if that's a very junior level role or a really senior role. But, like 20 years ago, we were hiring specialists, right? Like we had an editor and a colorist and a VFX person and a flame operator, And I would never do that. We would never do that at our place because we're, like I said before, we're a small company and everybody has to do so many things, not just because we're small, but because they're really good at a lot of different ways to storytell simultaneously. So for me, when we hire somebody at $11 bill, AI is just like, yeah, that's really cool. If you know AI, that's something I don't have to teach you or like get into our workflow, or maybe you can show me something I don't know. There's plenty out there that I don't know, right? But it's that creative POV that I think is the most important part. Like chasing tools is, worried about like the new AI stuff every single day. It's not the point. It's people who can come up with creative ideas. That's what I'm looking for. And on a junior level role, like a lot of our things are tasks, right? Like sometimes they're remedial, like let's ingest the footage, let's go through and do a rough cut, let's organize all this stuff. But it's dead important to everything else we do further on down the line. Those processes for us don't really go away. They just figure out different ways to get executed. So, I think it just needs to have like a reality shift that the roles that are there, that were there 20 years ago are totally changed from where we are today. It's a completely different ball field.
Things change, don't be afraid. Who has a question? What do we not cover? You back there. Tell us your name. Tell us, it can't be a comment, it has to be a 30-second question.
So I have an opinion and a question, feel free to address or attack any of that. But I feel like part of the hang-up right now is that we're getting stuck on this idea that original creation is kind of disappearing, and it's more leaning towards how do we synthesize information that we've accumulated over the years of creatives adding to this gold mine that we now can draw from, that now AI can draw from, whatever platform we're using can draw from. What's the intermediary step? Like, how do we move from this idea of like, no, this is my idea, this is my concept, I have ownership of it, to now we have this kind of community pot that we can all draw from and create something better. I mean, anything ever worthwhile has been built off the shoulders of giants, and that's kind of how I see things happening now, but we're so steadfast on this idea, like, no, this is my idea, this is my creation, AI is now the thief, and now that makes you a thief as well, because now you've used this thing that I originally created that now you're using to make this amazing thing. What's the step that gets us from letting go of this idea to really kind of leaning into the new concept of like, we're all sort of working on this thing together?
I can answer.
Who has an answer for that?
I think the window washer might.
Yeah, when,
Yes. Very entertaining.
it's taste, honestly. It's taste because there's so much out there. And like to your point, right? Like artists have been, learning from other artists and looking at their work, building off each other for, as long as art's been around. That's what art is. It's your spin on what the life is like around you and understanding how that works and seeing it like through your eyes. And when you have the opportunity to start like pumping shit out, and have this pile of stuff, like what happens then? You need somebody with an eye, someone creative, someone that can look through the pile of garbage and say, that sucks, that's great, right? And, think of it as like a photography shoot, right? You might take 2,000 photos in a session. And, how many of those are, so all the photos you take today, how many do you think that they'll have worth showing?
50?
And that's because you're
Oh, want me to do more, Michael?
because somebody with talent is curating that. And that's how I see things, and that's how you get through any of this stuff. Like, there's so much crap out there that is just mind-numbing, and the ideas that stand out are the ones that are, like, really thought through, and, whether it's just, like, one piece or, like, an entire edit, a campaign, a piece of art, a painting, somebody curated that through and through, and that's really the most human part of the process that does not go away.
I have a question. What was your name again? Clara, and what do you do? Okay. I think there's. So if I'm understanding your question, you're basically talking about who gets to own the idea, kind of moving into this new world of AI. Am I understanding that correctly?
It's more about releasing the concept that we have ownership of an idea.
Right.
And that now we're creating something new based off of these other ideas. Is that now my IP, or are we just
Right.
in a place where it's okay for us to all just kind of play from the same box?
Yeah, okay. So you're kind of coming from, there's a little bit of a legal question. And, okay. So I think that's a very interesting and scary question, I think. And there are a couple of schools of thought for me when it comes to ideas. One school of thought is an idea has no owners, only those that can make the idea better, which is an incredibly unselfish and like not good feeling, even just saying that, because it means that I have to be okay with relinquishing control of the idea and how that idea can take shape. I think that school of thought really thrives in a collaborative environment, but there also still needs to be some kind of parameters around that. The other school of thought is, fuck all y'all, this is my idea. I got the patent and I'm making all the money. From that school, that's a very Kanye school of thought. But like, if I'm thinking about it like, yeah, I want to get the question is also, how do we get the most amount of ideas out there with very little ownership and the most control? So from that school of thought, I'm just really getting ahead of not the creative process, but the legal process of who gets to own an idea. And the things that I kind of deal with, I'm having to deal with both. And I haven't experienced an answer yet on the ownership and protecting of the idea to make sure that that ownership comes back to you. From the other thing I would add to that is that it just kind of throws grease on an already burning fire of that creators space, specifically Black creators, where they put their idea out into the social space and it gets adapted so many times that no one credits them for the thing. So like, outside of a legal perspective, there's also some very real ramifications when it comes to individual creators that are just trying to make it and be known for their idea. But I don't think anyone's asking these questions, and if you find out, some answers is talking about them. But I think that's a very valid question.
Yeah, the AI gobbled up whose idea is it anyway? But that's scary when the original voices that are maybe underrepresented are represented even less, because you don't even know where the idea came from. It's just kind of from the melting pot. We have time for one more question. Who has one more super interesting question? Okay, who else?
No, I really appreciate this. I'm Erica. I appreciate the panel unfold with a lot of different perspectives, and I'm curious, showing this AI video first was a choice. And I'm curious, Kara and Jason, what's your reaction to that video?
One thing that both of you guys, with that question, but also what you were saying about, and your question about, ownership, who owns what. The thing that makes me think of is, when you're using AI as a tool, at what point are you no longer in ownership of the idea?
At the terms of service agreement checkbox.
Well, and that's where they got us in the beginning, is we all checked that box and it's like, oh, too late, sorry, we told you. But what I mean is, when you're putting a prompt into AI and you're letting AI lead you down a rabbit hole of solution, at what point are you no longer in control? At what point has the AI taken over? And at what point are you no longer, using your judgment to keep it on track? And I think that is, in a way, to me, that is the key to AI being good, is making sure that the user is the one staying in control of the process. Because it's inevitable, it's not going to go away, we're using it. And, it'll look better and better as time goes on, right? And it'll be better and better as time goes
It's
on.
like Toy Story 1 versus Toy Story 4. Do you think was Chris in control?
I have no idea. See, that's the thing, I don't know. I can look at something that, I can look at a Scorsese movie and know that Scorsese was in control, and think about the decisions he made, and see that, like, oh, that's pretty cool, he did that on purpose, or,
Did you see, was it The Irishman?
Yeah.
That was horrible.
Yeah, these young looking 90-year-olds. I have I have thoughts. First, your question just came to me. I think the future is going to be about patented process and not output. So that's you just made me think of that. I thought a lot of different things watching that I probably haven't felt before. The first emotion was empathy. I felt empathy before. That's not what I meant. But the first emotion was empathy because I'm watching this and I'm picturing the edit room, and I thought to myself, the one thing that was preventing a creative from, and this probably even happened, trying to edit the commercial themselves is not knowing how to use Avid, Final Cut, or whatever. But now it's just like prompting, I'm assuming. So I was just I had this ridiculous picture in my head of all of these people hovering around Chris trying to get, like, no, input it like this. No. But the other thought that I had was I could probably talk to him for hours about how this process went. There's a great question about pricing, but the one out of all of the thousands of thoughts and questions that I had that I would open up is post-production historically is in the name, it's post, it's after, you guys are last. And a lot of times you get shattered on in that process because all of the things have been thought through already, and now you kind of, in a typical partnership, inherit the vision. This put you at the top of the line. So you were just fucking King Kong of the creative. So I was kind of, oh man, I must have felt good for all of them. But the thought that I had was, man, what does this mean for the commercial process as it exists today? I'm paraphrasing, but creative development, production, post-production. You pretty much got rid of a lot of layers. So like, how did that start to shape for you what that means in terms of how post-production, or the phrase formerly known as, exists in this new world, in the creative process?
Yeah, I get you here. That's exactly what it felt like. Suddenly the weight of coming up with the content fell onto us. We've been doing that for a while though, as far as being able to be part of productions and helping our clients or agency clients come up with their concepts, help them figure out how to execute it correctly, and then we bring it back into post-production. But to your point, calling it post-production is wrong now, because now it's something completely different. And I know we're not the only people using AI in post-production. But you start to give the ability to the people who are the storytelling aspect of it, the ability to come up with how the story looks, which makes those creatives much more powerful than they ever have been. So now an editor isn't just an editor, right? That's an old role. They're just like a storyteller at that point. But you are doing it with the client, right? And yeah, that's super fucking weird. But you can do it in a way where everybody who would be on the shoot are in the room, because they're all the same, creative directors, art, account people, writers, they're all coming up with a story with you live. And that is, if you can do that dance correctly, it puts you in like kind of a different echelon of like what traditional post houses are used to being able to do.
Right.
Yeah, so it's very weird.
So, all right, one quick hot take to close this out. When you make something with AI, should you have to label it? Yes or no?
Yeah, you have to. You have to. If you looked in the corner, that's spotted.
I did.
Yeah, it's a dramatic AI reenactment. If it goes on socials, there's a checkbox. You got to check it, right? Like there's laws that make sure that you have to follow to make sure that people know that that's that. You don't fool people with this. You ask them if they want to use it, if they understand what's going on. If they don't, you explain it to them, you inform them, you teach the client. Consent. So, and like I said at the very beginning of this, like I don't push AI on our clients, right? Like if I see something that's gonna save us money and time and their money and time, I'm gonna say, hey, there's something I can do right here. They'll take 5 minutes. It's AI, it uses this. It's all within our enterprise guardrails, so it doesn't talk, you know. That's, somebody said something earlier about, if it was in control or not. And you have to pay like $2,000 a month to be in control of it, basically. So with those enterprise things, that makes it slightly unattainable for the consumer. But then it doesn't do the things that cause the problems.
So labeling, yes.
Yeah.
Cara?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Someone had to do it.
So I think about it in terms of like when there's a big digital push from film, do we have to label it digital? I don't know, something about it just feels very Ronald Reagan, put the label on the back rap albums. To me, like, I don't think the tool and how you made the creative thing matters. And I don't think that we should label it. To me, that kind of diminishes the thing. But I'm saying that in the context of being in the creative space. I don't think the same rules apply in news or things that we are meant to be taken or meant to read as reality. Sure. But in this world that we live in, we should not play by those certain rules.
Amen. This is why we have a panel, different opinions. Thank you all for being here. You're great. All right, the panel to our program, we've got promos here, goes us out. Kai, one of my wonderful graduate students, Kai, right here. If you got a little blue trinket, then he made that. And Kai, what is this trinket? Can you explain it to us?
Hello everyone, my name's Kai. So I custom 3D modeled this little trinket. It has a NFC tag inside of it. So if you hold your phone to it, it'll bring you to the brand studios. This is kind of my current alternative to, what do you call these things? Business cards.
I was not born in the 1900s. But I'm going to get some wonderful ad agency partners. Work in progress now. And creating ads on Green Adoptos Pizza, then you're paying their paychecks. Fortnite Collective, so they want to be like we got TDA Boulder, and we got this company, and we just and Vermilion, a lovely company and only does everything in AI. No, that's not true. Jessica works there. If you have a question about Vermilion, that's Jessica. Oh, and of course the Brand Studios for presenting this. Thank you so much. If you're interested in the school year, I cannot recommend it more. The professors are absolutely the tops. So come on over and ask some questions if you're interested in furthering your education. Our next session, Friday, April 10th, right here, same time, same place. You can follow us on Studio Sessions _CO on Instagram. We appreciate y'all being here so much for the first session. Thank you. I hope y'all will